Hi guys, good evening everyone. All of you can hear my voice. Yeah, perfect. Guys, today we are going to understand unit testing with JUnit mocking, right? So here, as a Java developer, when you join in any company, first they are not going to assign the development task. First, they are going to assign some unit testing related work, code coverage related work, and sonar related work they are going to assign. So here you need to concentrate to understand what is this unit testing and how to perform this unit testing by using JUnit and mock. So here mainly we need to learn what is unit testing and why. And next one, what is JUnit and how to use JUnit. And the third one, we need to learn what is mocking, how to use mocking, how to use mock objects. And fourth one, we need to learn what is code coverage and how to improve. These four topics are important. What is unit testing and why we need to go for unit testing? And what is JUnit? How to use JUnit to implement unit testing in the application? And we need to learn what is mocking and how to use mock objects for unit testing. Okay. And next one, what is code coverage and how to improve that code coverage as part of unit testing. So these are the things that we have to learn as part of this session. All right. So let's get started. First one, unit testing. So what is unit testing? As a developer, we are going to develop so many classes, and as part of those classes, we are going to write so many methods. Got it? Are you guys getting my point? We are going to understand what is unit testing and why we need to go for unit testing. So here, as a developer, we are going to develop so many classes and so many methods. For example, let me take one class with a name called calculator. Inside this class, there is a method called add method, which is taking two parameters and returning sum of those two numbers. Similarly, there is another method available, multiplication method. This is also taking two numbers as an input and it is returning multiplication of those two numbers. So this is just one simple Java class I'm taking. I no need to explain anything about this class. It's very basic, right? Now, like this, in the project, we are going to develop so many classes and we are going to create so many methods. When we develop the classes and methods like this, we need to test whether those methods are working as expected or not. If I give 20 and 20 as an input, is that method returning 40 as an output or not? I want to test it. And I want to test this method. If I give 2, 2 as an input, is it returning 4 as an output or not? 2 multiplied by 2, 4 is coming as an output or not? We need to test it. That is called as unit testing. So as a developer, we are writing the code. Once we write the code, we should not think that our task is completed. As a developer, after the code is completed, we need to test whether that code is working as expected or not. So for that, we are going to perform unit testing. So what is the definition for the unit testing? It is the process of testing. It is the process of testing individual components of software application. It is the process of testing individual components of software application. That is called unit testing. Why we need to perform this unit testing? Unit testing is used to identify the bugs in our code. Unit testing is used to identify the bugs available in our code. Whatever the code we are writing, is that code is working as expected or not? For which input, which output is coming? For the given inputs, the expected output is coming or not, we have to test it. The process of testing individual components of software application is called as unit testing. What is the main purpose of unit testing? The main purpose of unit testing is used to identify the bugs available in the code. So whatever the method I am writing, is my method working as expected or not? I will verify as part of this unit testing. With the help of unit testing, we can provide quality code. That means we can provide bug-free code for the testers once we done the unit testing. With the help of unit testing, we can provide quality code for higher environments. Right. We are working in the project development, so we will do the coding in our local. We will test whether that code is working in our local environment or not. Once our coding is tested, if there are any bugs available, we can identify those bugs and we can fix those bugs, and we can provide the quality code to the higher environment. Once our development is completed, testing will be available. So if we don't test your code, testers will identify the mistakes available in your code. So instead of giving the chance for them to identify the mistakes in your code, you only test your code line by line with the help of unit testing. So what is unit testing? Unit testing is the process of testing individual components of software application. The main purpose of unit testing to identify bugs available in the code. With the help of this unit testing, we can provide quality code for higher environments. Got it? To perform unit testing, we will use JUnit and mocking. So how we are going to perform this unit testing? How we are going to test these methods? To perform unit testing, we will use JUnit and mocking. What we are going to use, guys? We are going to use JUnit and mocking. JUnit is one open source framework that is used to perform unit testing for Java applications. All right. So for every project, unit testing is mandatory. Whatever the code you are writing, multiple developers will be available. Every developer is responsible to write the code as well as perform unit testing on the code which you have implemented. For the developer, coding plus unit testing is mandatory, right? So unit testing is the process of testing individual components of software application. The main purpose of unit testing to identify bugs available in our code. So what we can do with this, we can identify the bugs, we can fix the bugs, and we can provide quality code for the higher environments so that testers cannot identify the bugs in our application. All right. So to perform this unit testing, we will use JUnit and mocking. Now you may get a doubt here. Sir, we can test our code by using debugging also. Na? Already we have seen the debugging. We can debug the code line by line and we can identify the bugs available in the code. So here, today you can debug the code and you can identify the mistakes. In your project, there are 1,000 methods are available. Tomorrow, some developer modified one method in the project. Then can you debug all the 1,000 methods to verify all the methods are working as expected or not? Is it possible to debug the 1,000 methods every day? When you will go for the debugging, when the first time you are writing the method, then you will go for the debugging and you will execute the code line by line to verify that method is working as expected or not. Today that method is working as expected. So in our project, there are 1,000 methods available like this. So one developer modified one method in the project. Because of that method, maybe some other methods may be affected. You changed one method logic. Because of that method, some other functionality may break. How you will debug all the 1,000 methods in the project? That is not possible. So debugging you will use only when you are writing the method for the first time. If you are not able to understand where is the problem in the method, then you can go for the debugging. Every day you cannot debug all the lines of code available in the project. So as it is a development, every day code will be changed. Whenever there is a change in the code, maybe some other functionality will be affected in the project. So that's why for every project, unit testing will be available. Whenever the code is modified in the project, then immediately we can execute our unit test cases, which are implemented by using JUnit. So in the real time, no project will be available without JUnit. Are you guys getting my point? What is unit testing and what is the difference between unit testing and debugging? Are you guys able to understand the difference between unit testing and debugging? Now tell me when to go for debugging and when to go for unit testing. Guys, when to go for debugging and when to go for unit testing? Come on, I want your answers, guys. When to go for debugging and when to go for unit testing? Come on, guys, please respond. When to go for debugging and when to go for unit testing? To check the project execution flow, we will go for unit testing. If you want to understand the method execution flow, you can go for. If you want to understand the execution flow, you can go for debugging. If you want to understand where is the problem in the code, then you will go for debugging. Then what is the purpose of unit testing? Unit testing is used to check whether all the functionalities, all the methods in the project working as expected or not. Unit testing is used to verify all the components in the application are working as expected or not. So what is unit testing? It is the process of testing individual components of the application. Add method is working as expected or not. Multiplication method working as expected or not. Register method working as expected or not. Login method working as expected or not. Whatever the methods we are developing, those methods are working as expected or not, we are going to test. That is called unit testing. By using this, we can identify bugs available in our application. With the help of this unit testing, we can provide quality code for the higher environment. So who is responsible to perform this unit testing? Testers or developers? Developers are responsible to perform unit testing, not the testers, guys. In the project, developers will be available and the testers will be available. For unit testing, developers are responsible. Developers are responsible to perform unit testing. Testers are responsible for integration testing. So whatever the code we have done, the complete application testing will be done by testers, but unit testing will be done by developers. How we will perform the unit testing? To perform unit testing, we will use JUnit and mocking. Okay, what is JUnit and what is mock? What is JUnit and mocking? Okay, first understand the concept theoretically, then we will go for the practicals. What is JUnit and mocking? JUnit is a framework which is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. JUnit is a framework. JUnit is a Java-based framework. JUnit is a Java-based framework which is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. So JUnit is used only for Java applications. This JUnit is also developed based on the Java language. JUnit is a framework. Sorry, guys. JUnit is a Java-based framework which is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. Okay, guys. Now here, if you see, there is an official website for the JUnit. So here you can see junit.org. The official website is available for the JUnit. So you can see the documentation of the JUnit. The current version of the JUnit is JUnit 5. Okay. So JUnit to teams, statement on the war in the Ukraine, donate to Ukraine, something is available. JUnit 5 is the next generation of JUnit. The goal is to create an up-to-date foundation for developer-side testing on the JVM. This includes focusing on the Java 8 and above, as well as enabling many different styles of testing. JUnit 5 is the result of JUnit Lambda and its crowdfunding campaign in the Indigo. So there are several resources are available in the go to user guide, JUnit 5 overview. What is JUnit? Unlike the previous version of JUnit 5 is composed of several different modules from 3 different sub-projects. Okay. If you go for JUnit 5, the JUnit 5 is the combination of 3 products. One is JUnit Platform, second one is JUnit Jupyter, and the third one is JUnit Vintage. The JUnit Platform serves as a foundation for launching testing frameworks on the JVM. It also defines the test engine. JUnit Platform will be available. It is used to launch the tests that are running on the JVM. Then JUnit Jupyter, it is the combination of the programming model and extension model for writing the tests and extensions in the JUnit 5. Then JUnit Vintage is available. JUnit Vintage is providing backward compatibility. If any test is implemented on the JUnit 3 and JUnit 4, those also we can execute in the JUnit 5. For that, JUnit Vintage module is available. JUnit 5 is the combination of JUnit Platform, JUnit Jupyter, and JUnit Vintage. JUnit Vintage is used for backward compatibility. If any test cases are implemented by using JUnit version 3 or JUnit version 4, those can be executed in the JUnit 5. And JUnit Jupyter is available, that is providing programming model. Some annotations are introduced as part of this JUnit Jupyter. JUnit Platform, it provides the runtime to run JUnit test cases on the JVM. By combining these 3 sub-projects, they named it as JUnit 5. So what is the JUnit? JUnit is a Java-based framework which is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. The current version of the JUnit is JUnit 5. The current version of JUnit is JUnit 5. JUnit 5 is the combination of 3 products. One is JUnit Platform, and the next one JUnit Jupyter, and the third one JUnit Vintage. Okay, what is this JUnit Platform? JUnit Platform provides runtime environment to run the test cases in the JVM. Provides the runtime to run JUnit tests on JVM. JUnit Platform is providing the runtime environment to run JUnit test cases on the JVM. And the next one, JUnit Jupyter. What is this Jupyter? It provided some annotations to implement unit test cases. Provided annotations to implement unit test cases. Okay. And the next one, Vintage, provides backward compatibility. Vintage provides backward compatibility. What is the meaning of backward compatibility? So it supports JUnit 3 and JUnit 4 related tests also. JUnit 3 and JUnit 4 test support. If your project is already using JUnit version 3 or version 4, still those tests also you can run by using JUnit. So what is this JUnit? JUnit is a Java-based framework that is used to implement unit testing for Java application. The current version of the JUnit is JUnit 5. JUnit 5 is the combination of 3 products. One is JUnit Platform, next one is JUnit Jupyter, and the next one is JUnit Vintage. What is the JUnit Platform? JUnit Platform providing runtime to run the JUnit tests on the Java. As we discussed, JUnit is also a Java project. JUnit is developed by using Java, and now it is using to perform unit testing for the Java applications. Jupyter providing annotations to implement the unit tests. Vintage providing backward compatibility. Are you guys clear? What is unit testing and why we are going for unit testing? What is unit testing? The process of testing individual components of the software application is called as unit testing. Unit testing is used to identify the bugs available in the code. With the help of unit testing, we can provide quality code for the higher environments. Who is responsible to perform the unit testing? Developers are responsible to perform the unit testing. Okay, how we are going to perform unit testing in the real time? To perform unit testing in the real time, we are going to use JUnit along with mocking. So as of now, we are trying to understand what is JUnit. What is a JUnit? JUnit is a Java-based framework which is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. The current version of JUnit is JUnit 5. JUnit 5 is the combination of three products. One is JUnit Platform, second one is JUnit Jupyter, and the third one is JUnit Vintage. What is JUnit Platform? It provides runtime to run the JUnit tests on the Java. Jupyter providing the annotations to implement unit test cases. Vintage backward compatibility. JUnit framework provided annotations and assertions. JUnit framework provided several annotations to perform unit testing. As part of this JUnit framework, there are several annotations available. They are used to perform unit testing. What are those annotations? At the rate test annotation, at the rate parameterized test annotation is available, at the rate value source annotation is available, and at the rate before all annotation is available, at the rate after all annotation is available, at the rate before each annotation available, at the rate after each annotation is available. Like this, there are several annotations that are available in the JUnit. Okay. At the rate test annotation, at the rate parameterized test annotation, at the rate value source annotation, at the rate before all, at the rate after all, at the rate before each, at the rate after each. Like this, there are several annotations are available in the JUnit framework. Okay, guys, by using these annotations, we are going to implement unit testing. These annotations are part of JUnit framework. JUnit is a Java-based framework, and this JUnit is open source framework. JUnit is a Java-based framework, and it is open source framework that is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. To implement that unit testing for the Java applications, in the JUnit, there are several annotations are available. At the rate test annotation, at the rate parameterized test annotation, at the rate value source, before all, after all, before each, after each, like that. There are so many annotations are available in the JUnit. We can see this. Suppose I want to execute one method. There is a class called calculator. In the calculator class, add method is available. Now I want to write the method to test the calculator add method. If I give one, suppose I have created the method, add method is available. It is taking two inputs and it is returning sum of those two inputs. Now, if I give 1, 1 as the input for the method, is it returning 2 as the output or not? I want to test it. This is called one test case. So to represent this method is one test case, we are going to use one annotation called at the rate test annotation. What is this at the rate test annotation? At the rate test annotation will represent this method is a unit test method. This method is a JUnit method. So what this method will do? It will call the actual calculator class add method with 1, 1 as the input. That method will return sum of those two numbers. Sum of those two numbers is equal to 2 or not, it is going to verify. To verify that, we are having asset methods. So JUnit framework provided several annotations to perform unit testing like below. Similarly, JUnit framework provided several asset methods to verify unit test results. JUnit framework provided several asset methods assert methods to verify unit test results. Okay, guys. Now I'm calling this add method. So 1, 1 is the input. Expected output is 2. So expected output is 2. What is the actual output? I want to compare expected output and actual output. If expected output is matching with the actual output, then that method testing is successful. Then I can say this test case is pass. I'm giving 1, 1, sum of these two numbers. I'm expecting the output as 2. This is my expected value. This method will return the actual value. I want to compare expected value is matching with the actual value or not. If expected value matching with the actual value, then we can say that a test is successful. So here there are several methods available. Those are called as assert methods. The assert methods are used to verify unit test results. For example, assert equals expected value, comma, actual value. Sorry. If this expected value is matching with the actual value, then I can say this test is passed. Are you guys getting my point? If this expected value matching with the actual value, then I can say test is passed. Assert not equals. Assert not equals. Okay. Expected value, comma, actual value should not match. Assert null. Assert null. Assert not null. Assert null. Assert not null. Assert true. Assert true. Assert false. Assert true. Assert false. Okay. Like this, there are so many methods available in the JUnit framework. What is the purpose of these methods? These are the assertions. Assertions are used to verify unit test results. Okay. And these are annotations are available. So who provided all these things? All these things are provided by JUnit. So what is this JUnit? JUnit is a Java-based framework which is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. The current version of the JUnit is JUnit 5. JUnit 5 means combination of 3 projects we already discussed. This JUnit framework provided several annotations to perform unit testing. These are the annotations available. And this JUnit framework provided several assert methods to verify unit test results. Now, I'm going to call one method. That method is giving some result. Whether that method is giving the correct result or wrong result, I want to verify. That's where assert methods comes into picture. These are called as assertions. JUnit provided assertions. Are you guys clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point? What is unit testing? Why we need to go for unit testing? What is JUnit? Just we are understanding theoretically. Just we are understanding theoretically. We have not entered into programming part. Guys, quickly revise. What is unit testing? All of you be active. All of you be active. Read this. Unit testing. Unit testing is the process of testing individual components of software application that is used to identify bugs available in our code. With the help of this unit testing, we can provide high quality code for the higher environments. Who are responsible to perform this unit testing? Who are responsible to perform unit testing? Testers or developers? Come on, guys. Who are responsible to perform unit testing? Testers or developers? Developers are responsible to perform unit testing. So to perform the unit testing, what we are going to use? To perform the unit testing, we will use JUnit and mocking. So what is JUnit and mocking? JUnit is Java-based framework which is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. So what is the current version of JUnit? It is JUnit 5. So in the JUnit framework, we are having some annotations. What is the purpose of these annotations? These annotations are used to perform unit testing. Okay. And JUnit framework provided several assert methods to verify unit test results. What is the assert method? Now, I told you, this is my actual method. I want to test this method is working as expected or. So how I am going to test? Input, I'm going to provide 2 plus 2. Okay. Then I'm expecting output is coming as 4 or. So 2 plus 2 is the input I'm giving. Output I'm expecting as 4. Okay. If this method returns 4 as the output, that method is working as expected. If this method not returning the 4 as the output, that method is not working as expected. So like this, we are going to provide the input and we'll get the output. That output, whatever the output we are getting, that is called actual output. What is the output we are expecting? Expected output and actual output. Both are matching or not. We are going to verify by using assert equals. Assert equals is used to verify expected result and actual result matching or not. Are you guys clear with this one? Yes, assertions are used to verify our methods are giving the results as expected or not. Okay. And here, always we need to remember unit testing we have to implement with isolation. Unit testing we have to implement with isolation, nothing but independent. Unit testing we have to implement with isolation. What is the meaning of isolated unit testing? Isolated unit testing means testing individual component of the application. Okay. Now here, if you see, my method is available, add method. Does this method depends on any other method or this is independent method? Guys, if you see, add method is available. This add method is having any dependency. Add method is having any dependency. Is it independent method or it is a dependent method? This is independent method. There is no problem. Let me go for another example. Let me go for another example. Let me go here. There is a REST controller. There is a REST controller. My REST controller method is available. Now, assume that we have a requirement to perform unit testing for our REST controller method. Now, look at this REST controller method, welcome method. Now tell me, welcome method is independent method or welcome method is dependent method? Welcome method is independent method or welcome method is dependent method? Come on, guys. You can look at the method and you can answer my question. Welcome method is independent method or welcome method is a dependent method? Welcome method is dependent on the service class method. In the real time, most of our methods will be like this. One method will be calling another method. That's where unit testing will become difficult. If your method is like a calculator class add method, unit testing is very easy. The reason this method is a direct method, that method does not have the dependency with any other method. So if you have a method like this, then writing the unit testing is a cakewalk. It is very easy. But in the real time, our methods will have some dependency with the other methods. Controller method will call the service method. Service method will call the DAO method. Methods will have dependency. Guys, here, observe carefully. This is little difficult to understand and it is a little confusing concept also. Concentrate carefully. Whenever we are going for unit testing, first you need to decide what is your target for testing. First you need to decide what is your target for testing. Guys, all of you, next 10 minutes is very important concept. First, let's understand theoretically why we need to go for isolated testing. What is isolated unit testing? I'm trying to explain. That is very confusing concept. Please concentrate for next 5 to 10 minutes. Now, As a developer, we are responsible to perform unit testing. When we are going for unit testing, first we need to decide what is our target. Now assume that if your target is to test add method, first understand, does that method having any dependency with other methods or not? If that method does not have any dependency with the other method, then no problem. Our job is very easy to test this method, because we just need to call this method by passing inputs which that method is expecting and get the output of this method, compare the actual output with the expected output. If actual output is matching with expected output, that means the test case is pass. If the actual output is not matching with the expected output, the test case is failed. That is very simple and straightforward scenario. If your target is to test a method which is independent method, that does not have any dependency with the other method, then unit testing is very easy. But in the real time, these kind of methods in the project are very less. In the real time, our methods will have dependency. We will have a controller or a REST controller. Our controller or REST controller will talk to service will talk to DAO. Okay, now if your target is to test this unit test method, you need to test only this method. Unit testing means individual component should be tested. Now here, if I want to test this method is having a dependency with the service class method. Now here, whenever I am calling this REST controller method, service class method should not be executed. Are you guys getting my point? So first you need to decide the target. My target is this welcome method in the REST controller. Okay, I want to test this method. I want to test this method means only this method, not its dependent method. This method is having a dependency with the service class method. Now, without calling the service class method, I need to test only this method. That is called isolated unit testing. When we are going for the unit testing we have to implement with the isolation. We need to test this method. Our target is welcome REST controller class, welcome method. But unfortunately, that method is having a dependency with the service class method. Now remember, when you are testing this method, your service class method should not be called. That is called isolated unit testing. Let me take another example. Okay, so here I am having service class. Now here inside the service class, there is a method called login method is available. I have a service class. Inside the service class, get name method available, login method is available. For example, let me go for get name method. Observe, this is my target. This method is a dependent method or this method is independent method. Get name method is a dependent method or it is independent method. This method is dependent method or this method is independent method. This method is dependent method. So when I call this service class method, it will talk to DAO method. This service method depends on the DAO. Now what is my target? My target is I need to test only this service method without calling the DAO method. That is called isolated unit testing. So as a developer, when we are going for testing, you need to understand whether you are going for unit testing or you are going for integration testing. Integration testing means from controller to service, service to DAO, DAO to database. That is called integration testing. Unit testing means only this method should be executed. In our project implementation, we are going to follow layered architecture. Okay, so here REST controller will be available, and here service layer will be available. Here repository or DAO will be available, and here database will be available. assume that this is our database, this is our DAO, this is our service, okay, and this is our REST controller. REST controller. Now, REST controller method will talk to service. Service method will what? Guys, 1 minute. Yeah, right, guys. So here we are having a REST controller. We are having a REST controller. REST controller is communicating with the service. Service is going to communicate with the DAO, and DAO is going to communicate with the database. Now, here UI will be available, or some testing tool will be available, like a Postman or Swagger. Okay, assume that UI is available. Okay, whenever you do some operation in the UI, from the UI, it will go to the REST controller. From the REST controller, it will go to the service. From the service, it will go to the DAO. From the DAO, it will go to the database. So when I click on the login button, from UI to REST controller to service, service to DAO, DAO to database. If you do the testing, login functionality working or not, from starting point to till ending point, we are going to test. That is called integration testing. But today, what we are talking about integration testing, or we are talking about unit testing. Guys, we are talking about integration testing, or we are talking about unit testing. We are talking about unit testing. We are talking about unit testing. Okay. So when we are talking about the unit testing, first we need to decide the target. My target is, I want to test only REST controller. My REST controller method is dependent on the service method. I should not call the service method. I should call only REST controller. I should execute only REST controller method. That is called as isolated unit testing. That means I don't want to execute my dependent method. I want to execute only my target method logic. That is called testing individual components of our application is called as unit testing. Now you may get a doubt. Sir, this method is calling service class method now. Without executing this line, how can we execute this method? That is the biggest question. So if I execute this line, service method will be called. If I call the service method, that will become unit testing, or that will become integration testing. Yes or no? When I call this REST controller method, if it call the service method will call the DAO method, then it will become unit testing, or it will become integration testing. That will become integration testing. But what we need to know, unit testing. What is the meaning of unit testing? What is the definition I have given? Unit testing is the process of testing individual components of the application. Isolated unit testing. Isolated unit testing we need to implement. We need to focus only on the target method logic, not on the dependent method logic. Now you have a question. Sir, when I send you a GET request for this method, how can you skip this line? This line is part of the method now. When I test this method, this line also will be executed now. That's where mocking comes into picture. When you are going for unit testing, we need to go for mocking. By using this mocking, we can perform unit testing with the isolation. By using this JUnit, we can perform unit testing. But not only unit testing, I want isolated unit testing. When we want isolated unit testing, then we need to go for mocking. Are you guys getting my point? So for unit testing, what is required? JUnit and mocking is required. What is JUnit? JUnit is a framework that is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. When we are going for unit testing, we need to focus only on the target method logic, not on the dependent method logic. So that's where mocking comes into picture. Now, what is mocking? So here, when we are going to perform, observe carefully guys, when we are going to perform unit testing for this REST controller, my REST controller method is calling service class method. That means my REST controller method is dependent on service class method. But I need to perform isolated unit testing for only REST controller method. Inside the REST controller method, service class method I am calling. That is called dependent method. Now, when we are performing this unit testing, what we need to do is, here, instead of talking to the real service, what I will do is, I'm going to create one mock service. Mock service nothing but dummy service. Mock service nothing but dummy service. So here, if you see, real service object is injected to the REST controller. Instead of injecting the real service to the REST controller, we are going to inject a mock service to the REST controller. Mock service nothing but dummy. So it is substitute for the real object. Mocking nothing but dummy. Creating the substitute object for the real object. In general, service class object should be injected to REST controller when we are performing the integration testing. But when we are performing the unit testing, instead of injecting the real service object, we are going to create a dummy service. That dummy service object we will inject into the REST controller. Then in this welcome service variable, mock object will be injected. When I call the REST controller method, in this line, instead of talking to the real service method, it will talk to the mock service method. So instead of using the real objects, we are going to use mock objects in the unit testing. So that's why people will feel unit testing is difficult, because mocking is required. We need to create the mock objects and we need to inject the mock objects into our target classes to perform isolated unit testing. Are you guys clear with my point? What is the mocking? Mocking is the process of creating substitute object for the real object. Okay, so we are going to understand what is mocking. The process of creating substitute object for the real object is called as mocking. The process of creating substitute object for the real object is called as mock object. Mock object is equal to dummy object. Okay. Mock objects are used as part of unit testing. When we are going to use mock objects are used for unit testing. What is the purpose of mock objects? Mock objects are used for unit testing. By using mock objects, we can implement isolated unit testing. By using mock objects, we can achieve isolated unit testing. Isolated unit testing means testing only our target method. Testing only our target method, not its dependent method. Now the real example, I want to test this method. This method is having a dependency with the service method. Without calling the real service method, I want to test this method. Without calling the real service method, I want to test this method. Okay, I want to test only this method. When I'm going to test this method, in this line, I don't want to execute the real service. I want to execute the mock service. So here, auto wiring is available. When you run the normal boot application, in this REST controller, real welcome service object will be injected. But when I'm going for the unit testing, instead of the real welcome service, I'm going to inject the mock service. So when I test this REST controller will talk to mock service instead of talking to real service. That means without executing the service class method, I can test my REST controller method. That is called isolated unit testing. Why we need to do that? Because I want to understand REST controller method behavior, not the service class method behavior. Okay. When I go for integration testing, then I will execute REST controller method with the service method, with the DAO method, with the database. That is called integration testing. But unit testing means I want to test only REST controller method. When I'm testing the REST controller method, instead of executing the real service method, I'm going to create the mock service. Mock service object will be injected to the REST controller, and I will test the REST controller method with the mock service. Similarly, now my target is service class method. For example, like this. My target is service class method. My service class method is dependent on the DAO. When I want to test this service class method, for example, let us take login method. So here, login method is available in the service class. I want to test this method. My requirement is when I give email and password, this method is returning success or failure. When I give valid credential, is it returning success or not? When I give invalid credential, it is returning failure. I don't want to execute the DAO method. So DAO is a dependent. Then what I will do? For this DAO, I am going to create one mock DAO. Instead of talking to the real DAO, we are going to create one mock DAO. That mock DAO we will inject into the service. When I am testing the REST controller method will talk to mock service. When I am testing the service will talk to mock DAO. Mocking is very, very important when we are going for unit testing. Are you guys clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point? What is a mocking? This is a confusion topic for the freshers, guys. What is mocking? Why we need to go for mocking? So that's why I told you unit testing is a little confusing. Writing the actual code is easy than writing the unit testing code. Writing the normal logic is easy, but writing the unit testing logic is difficult. Still in the companies, there are so many people are struggling with the unit testing logic because it is difficult to write. They need to imagine first before writing the code. Okay, what is our task? We want to test this method. This method having a dependency with the DAO. Let's not call the real DAO. Let's create the mock DAO. Let's inject the mock DAO into our target. Then test our target with the mock object. Are you guys clear? What is a JUnit and mocking? JUnit is a framework that is used to perform unit testing. So while performing the unit testing, we need to focus on the isolated unit testing. To achieve isolated unit testing, mock objects are required because our methods are having the dependency with the other class methods. So I don't want to execute the other class method. I want to execute only my target class method. To execute only our target class method, instead of going with the real dependents, we are going with the mock dependents. Service depends on the DAO. Instead of executing the real DAO method, we will go for the mock DAO and we'll test our service. When I want to test my REST controller, instead of going for the real service, we'll create the mock service and we'll test the REST controller. When I'm testing the REST controller, mock service will be injected. When I'm testing the service, mock DAO will be injected. When I'm testing the DAO, then dummy results we are going to return. Dummy connection we are going to create and we are going to test our DAO methods. Or when we are testing the DAO, test database will be available for that. H2 databases will be used for unit testing. If you want to test your DAO layer, instead of using the real database, we can use the H2 database for the testing purpose. Are you guys clear with my point? Here, so there are several frameworks available to perform mocking. There are several frameworks available to implement mocking. What are those frameworks? Easy mock, wire mock, JMockito, power mock, etc. So there are several mocking frameworks are available in the market. So JUnit is a framework that is used to perform unit testing, right? As part of that unit testing, we are going to use mocking. What is the mocking? The process of creating substitute object for the real object is called as mocking. So what is mock? Mock means dummy. Why we need to go for mock objects? Mock objects are used for unit testing. If you are not doing unit testing, is there any use of mock object? No. Mock objects are only used for unit testing. By using mock objects, we can achieve isolated unit testing. What is the meaning of isolated unit testing, guys? What is the meaning of isolated unit testing? Isolated unit testing means testing only our target methods instead of testing the dependent method logic. So here, if you want to perform isolated unit testing, mock objects are required. So to create the mock objects, there are several frameworks available. What are those frameworks? Easy mock, wire mock, JMockito, power mock, etc. Like that, there are several mock frameworks are available to create the mock objects. Are you clear? Guys, come on. Theoretically, are you clear? What is mocking and why we need to go for mocking? Theoretically, are you guys clear? What is mocking and why to go for mocking? I'm not getting the response. I'm not getting the response from the people. Guys, please be active. Even though I'm not feeling well, I'm taking the class because syllabus is getting delayed. Be active and respond. Okay, and next one. While we are performing the unit testing, other important thing that we need to understand, that is, what is code coverage? When we are going for the unit testing, other important thing that we need to understand, what is code coverage? What is code coverage? Code coverage is the process of identifying. Code coverage is the process of identifying how many lines of code is tested as part of unit testing. Okay, which lines covered in unit testing, which lines are not covered in unit testing. That we are going to identify by using code coverage. So what is code coverage? Code coverage is the process of identifying how many lines of code is tested as part of unit testing. So in our program, for example, if I take a method like this, or if I take this method, so this line is executed or not? This line is executed or not? this line is executed or not, this line is executed or not. So whenever you perform unit testing for this method, in this method, there are several lines available. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines of code is available. All the 5 lines executed in the unit testing or not, we can identify by using code coverage. So what is code coverage? Code coverage is the process of identifying how many lines of code is tested as part of unit testing. Industry standard, if you have 100 lines in the project, minimum 80 lines should be tested as part of unit testing. Industry standard is 80% code coverage for every project. Industry standard is 80% code coverage. Industry standard is 80% code coverage. So if your project contains 1000 lines, minimum 800 lines should be executed by using your JUnit test cases. 800 lines should be tested by using JUnit as part of unit testing if you have 1000 lines. If you have 100 lines, minimum 80 lines should be tested as part of unit testing. Okay, code coverage. Code coverage is the process of identifying how many lines of code is tested as part of unit testing. For example, if I run this application, let me show you. So there is Jacopo application is available. Now, if you take, there are so many classes available. There are so many methods are available in this application. So when I perform unit testing for this application, it will generate code coverage report. What is the meaning of code coverage report? What is the code coverage report? So in that application, how many lines of code is available? Then how many lines of code is tested as part of unit testing? How many lines of code is not tested? Which lines are tested? Which lines are not tested? When we generate that code coverage report, if the line is tested in the unit testing, it will show as a green color. If the line is not tested, it will show as a red color. So practically, we are going to understand what is code coverage and how to improve that code coverage also. For time being, remember, code coverage report is mandatory for the project. In the industry, for every project, minimum 80% of code coverage is required. Tomorrow, when you join in the company as a Java developer, first 3 months, they will give you tasks related to JUnits. In our project, code coverage is 50% only. You write the unit test cases so that code coverage will be improved. In our project, JUnits are not available properly. Please write the unit test cases for our application. In our project, sonar issues are available. Please fix the sonar issues in our application. For the new joiners in the project, for first 3 months, they are going to give JUnit tasks, code coverage tasks, sonar tasks only. So you should be very careful how to implement all these things in the project. Once you prove yourself in this code coverage, JUnit and sonar, then they will give you actual development task. Okay, guys? Is it mandatory to test each and every method? If your method contains the business logic, then definitely you have to test that method. In our project, there are 100 methods available. In those 100, if 20 methods are dummy methods, setter-getter methods, unit testing is not required for setter-getter methods. If your methods, basically your service class methods, REST controller methods should be tested because they will have the logic. If your method contains the logic, then that method you have to test. For example, in our project, assume that we are having some constants class. So there will be a constants class like this. Do we need unit testing for the constants class? Do we need unit testing for the constants class? Come on, guys. No. Unit testing is not required for the constants class. Such kind of classes we can ignore from the code coverage report. Code coverage is the process of identifying how many lines of code is tested as part of unit testing. Whenever we generate the code coverage report, it is going to identify how many lines of code is covered as part of unit testing, which lines are covered, which lines are not covered. Okay, in the green color, red color, it is going to display. Industry standard is 80% of the code coverage. Industry standard is 80% of code coverage. Okay, guys. Now, let me run this application once. Right click, run as Maven test. Just I'm going to show you code coverage report, how it is going to display. I'm executing Maven test goal on the project. Let us see. Here, Jacoco plugin is added. Jacoco is used to generate code coverage report of our application. Jacoco is used for generating code coverage report for our application. Just I'm showing you the project. We will develop this, guys. We will implement this. Okay, just I want to show you to get the idea what is code coverage report. For binding classes, for entity classes, for repository interfaces, code coverage is not required. Mainly for controllers and service classes, for util classes, it is required. For entity classes, for binding, form binding classes, unit testing is not required. Yeah. So guys, you got the clarity. What is code coverage? Code coverage is the process of identifying how many lines of code is tested as part of unit testing, which lines are covered in the unit testing, which lines are not covered in the unit testing, we will identify by using code coverage. So industry standard is 80% of the coverage for every project. Yeah, this project test goal I have executed. So whenever you execute the test goal, guys, in this project, target directory, site will be generated, Jacoco index.html will be available. Let me go to that workspace. So Jacoco application, target, site, Jacoco, index.html file will be available. Let me open that file and let me show you code coverage. Go to Chrome. This is the code coverage report we are going to get. So what is the coverage? Missed branches available, missed instructions available. What is the coverage available now? 17% coverage is available. What is the total coverage we need? What is the total coverage we need? 80%. Go to package, registration REST controller. In this, there are so many methods are available. Can you see here? All the lines are displaying in the green color. What is the meaning of that? All these lines are tested as part of unit testing. Let me go back to my service package. In the service package, there are so many methods are available. Now, this method is displaying in the red color. Why this method is displaying in the red color? Why this method is displaying in the red color, guys? That means this code is not tested in the unit testing. So for service class, I have not implemented unit testing. So that's why only for this method, I have implemented unit testing that is displaying in the blue color. For this method, I have not done. For the remaining methods, I have not done. That's why everything is coming in the red color. So if it is coming in the green color, that means that method is executed as part of unit testing. The remaining methods are not executed as part of unit testing. That's why for service class, how much coverage is available? 5% coverage is available. For service class, how much coverage available? 5% coverage is available. For REST controller, 100% coverage is available, because in the REST controller, all the methods I have tested in the unit testing. So that's why 100% coverage is available for the REST controller. But for the service, only one method is tested. That's why 5% coverage available. Overall project coverage, 17%. What is the industry standard? 80%. You understand what is code coverage now? Guys, now you got the clarity what is code coverage. Which methods you have tested in the unit testing? Which lines of code is executed in the unit testing? Which lines of code is not executed in the unit testing? will be identified by code coverage. Okay. So industry standard is 80%. We have several tools to generate code coverage report. We have several tools to generate code coverage report. What are those tools? Jacoco, Cobertura, etc. Like that, there are several tools available in the market. Those tools are used to generate code coverage report. One is Jacoco and the second one is Cobertura. Okay. If you add Sonar Cube, if you do the code review by using Sonar Cube also will display code coverage report in the Sonar dashboard. So in the project, we have done the code review for our application by using Sonar Cube. Sonar Cube will identify the mistakes in our code. Sonar Cube will identify duplicate code blocks, and Sonar Cube will identify code coverage also for our application. You can add Jacoco. Sir, in this project, what you have done? Nothing. In this project, I have added one plugin that is called Jacoco plugin. So if you add this Jacoco plugin in the pom.xml, then that Jacoco plugin is providing this code coverage report for me. In the company, they will give you a task like this. For this class, code coverage is not good. These methods does not have JUnit test cases. Write the unit testing for these methods in the service so that code coverage will be improved. For these methods, unit testing is not implemented. So you implement a unit testing for these methods so that code coverage will be improved for these methods. That is the task they are going to provide for the beginners in the project. Are you guys getting my point? What the task they will give you? Code is already available, functionality is working. But the thing is, unit testing is not implemented for that code. You write the unit test cases so that code coverage will be improved for the project. Are you guys getting my point? Guys, are you clear with what is code coverage? All right. Now, what is unit testing and why? So, can you tell me what is unit testing and why? Unit testing is used to test individual components of our application. Okay. Why we need to go for unit testing? Unit testing is used to improve code quality. Unit testing is used to identify bugs in our application. By using unit testing, we can provide quality code for higher environments. Okay. The next one, how to perform this unit testing. To perform the unit testing, we are going to use one framework which is very famous in the Java community, that is called JUnit. What is JUnit? JUnit is Java-based framework that is used to implement unit testing for Java applications. How to use that JUnit? JUnit provided several annotations. JUnit provided several annotations to implement unit testing. And when we are implementing unit testing, we need to check the results of the unit testing. For that, assertions are available. JUnit provided several assertions to perform unit testing to validate the results. Okay, and next one. When we are going for the unit testing, we need to go for isolated unit testing. What is isolated unit testing? We need to test individual components of the application. When one method is having a dependency with the another method, we need to go for mock objects. When you are going for unit testing, mocking is very, very important. What is a mocking? The process of creating dummy object for the real object is called mocking. So wherever you need the dependent, in that you will insert the dummy object to execute the code. For that, we are going to use mocking. How to create the mock objects for the UT, for unit testing? To create the mock objects, there are several mock frameworks are available. What are the mock frameworks available? Easy mock, power mock, wire mock, JMock, like that. Like that, there are several mock frameworks are available. Okay. Spring Boot by default providing power mock as part of Spring Boot test module to perform the unit testing. Okay. And when we are doing this unit testing, always you need to understand what is your target. Does your target is having any dependency with another class methods or with other methods? If a dependency not available, doing the unit testing is very easy. If the dependency is available, then you need to create the mock object and you need to define the behavior for the mock object. Then only we can perform the unit testing. Okay. Then after your unit testing is completed, how many lines of code is covered as part of unit testing that we need to verify? Which lines are covered in the unit testing? Which lines are not covered in the unit testing? That we need to verify by generating code coverage report. What is code coverage? Code coverage is the process of identifying which lines of code is tested as part of unit testing, which lines of code is not tested as part of unit testing. Okay, guys. Which lines of code is tested as part of unit testing? Which lines of code is not tested as part of unit testing will be identified by using code coverage. How to improve that code coverage? To improve the code coverage, we need to go for better unit test cases. We need to write good unit test methods. We need to cover almost all the lines of code available in our application by writing more unit test cases. To identify that code coverage, we are going to use Jacoco. Jacoco is a plugin. Jacoco is a plugin that we can add in our application and we can generate the code coverage report by using that Jacoco. So are you guys clear theoretically what we have discussed as of now? What is unit testing and why? What is JUnit and how to use JUnit? What is mocking and how to use mock objects for unit testing? What is code coverage and how to improve that code coverage? Theoretically, are you guys clear with this? Quickly revise. Just read this document from top to bottom, guys, just for revision purpose. What is unit testing? Okay, it is used to test our code, to verify behavior of the code, to identify mistakes in the code. What is the JUnit and mocking? First, what is JUnit? JUnit is a framework to implement unit testing for Java applications. Current version of the JUnit is JUnit 5. JUnit 5 is the combination of three products. Those are Platform, Jupyter, Vintage. Platform providing runtime environment to run the unit test cases. Jupyter providing annotations to run the unit test cases. Vintage providing backward compatibility. In this framework, we have several annotations to perform the unit testing. @test and all these annotations are available. This framework provided several asset methods to verify unit test results. Okay. Unit testing we have to implement with isolation. To implement isolation, we need mock objects. Okay. What is mocking? The process of creating substitute object for the real object is called as mocking. Mock object nothing but dummy object. Mock objects are used for unit testing. By using mock objects, we can achieve isolated unit testing. Isolated unit testing means testing only our target method. There are several frameworks available to implement mocking in the market. What are those frameworks? EasyMock, WireMock, JMockito, and PowerMock. Then after code coverage, another important factor in the unit testing. What is code coverage? Code coverage is the process of identifying how many lines of code is tested as part of unit testing, which lines are covered, which lines are not covered. A clear report it is going to display. If the line is executed in the unit testing, it will display in the green color. If the line is not executed, it will display in the red color. In the industry, the standard is 80% of coverage required for the project. So if you are having 80% of the coverage, that means you are good. Unit testing is done properly for the application. So we have several tools to generate the code coverage report for our applications like Jacoco and Cobertura. SonarQube also will show you code coverage report. Now, let me take one simple example and let me implement. Now, theoretically, we are clear. Let's jump into practicals of the unit testing. Guys, JUnit is not that much easy. Theoretically, you got the clarity, but implementing the unit testing is very, very, very difficult. Implementing the unit testing is very, very difficult. Even experienced developers also struggling in the industry to write the proper unit test cases, because mock objects we have to create. We have to define the behavior for the mock objects. Wherever there is a dependency, instead of using the real object, we need to go for the mock object and we need to perform the unit testing. It is a complex task. It is not a cakewalk. Okay. And for every method, we'll have a different logic. Every method will have a different logic. Based on the logic is there in the method, we have to write the unit test case for that. It is a challenging task. I'm not saying it is easy. Okay, fine. Now, first let me take one simple example. Here, I have one project. In this project, there is a class called calculator class is available. In this class, we are having add method and multiplication method. Initially, I'm taking very simple methods. Now, I want to perform unit testing for these methods. I no need to explain this class. It's very simple. Arithmetic operations are available. Now, whenever we are going to create a project, in the main Java, our application source code will be available. In the test Java, we need to create our test classes. So here, calculator.java is available. In that calculator class is called our target class, and we need to perform unit testing for that class. In that class, there are two methods available. I need to perform unit testing for all the two methods. Okay. So for testing purpose, for unit testing purpose, we created one more class called calculator test class. Now inside this, first I want to test this add method. Then we are going to write public void test add. That means this is used for testing add method. Public void test add method. So inside this method, I should write the logic to test this method behavior. What this method is doing? Sum of two numbers. This method is taking two numbers and giving sum as output. Now I want to call that method and I want to test it. Calculator C is equal to new calculator. I'm calling that target class method by creating the object. Those methods are instance methods. So I need the object for the calling. those methods. C dot add, I'm passing 1, 2 as an input. And that method is giving result. That method is giving the result. Okay. Now, I'm going to call the method by passing two numbers. That method returning some result. So this is, can I call this as actual result of the method? This is the actual result that given by the method. Can I say this is the actual result given by the method? I'm calling the method which I want to test. When I call that method is giving me some result. What I'm expecting, I'm passing 1, 2 as a input. 1 plus 2, sum is 3. So that is my expected value. Int expected result is equal to 3. Are you guys getting my point? Method I called, I got the actual value. Method output I am storing into one variable. This is my expected value. Now I want to verify expected value matching with actual value or not. For that, in the JUnit, we are having assertions, right? Assertions are available in the JUnit to verify. So what assertion I am going to use? I'm going to use assert equals expected result is matching with the actual result or not. If we expected result, assert equals method will verify first parameter value, second parameter value, both are equal or not. This is my expected result. This is my actual result. If both are equal, this method will return void. Assert equals method is available. Right? What is the method return type? Void. There is nothing. So this will inform that this test is pass. If both are equal, this test is pass. If both are not equal, this test is failure. So this is a normal method. How to represent this method as a test method? To represent this method as a test method, we are going to use @test annotation. Okay. So @test annotation is coming from JUnit to Jupyter. In the JUnit file, we discussed there are 3 components available. JUnit to platform, JUnit to Jupyter, JUnit to vintage. JUnit to vintage for the backward compatibility, leave it. If you are using JUnit to 3 or JUnit to 4, then JUnit to vintage is required. Jupyter is providing annotations to implement unit test cases. I want to represent this as one unit test method. To represent this as one unit test method, I'm using @test annotation. That means it is one test case. So here I'm calling the target class method. It is giving some result that is called my actual result. I want to compare that with the expected result. I'm expecting 3. If I get the actual result as 3, then my test is successful. That means add method working as expected. Here, to represent this method as a test method, I'm writing one annotation called @test annotation. To represent this method as a test method, we are using annotation called @test annotation. So if expected result matching with the actual result, then test is pass, otherwise the test is fail. All right. So once you write, if you don't write @test, that will become a normal Java method only. I want to represent this as a JUnit method. To represent this as a JUnit method, we will use @test annotation. Okay. Now right click, run as. What option we are getting? JUnit test. So in this class, we have a method with @test. If I remove this annotation, when I right click run as, I'm not getting any option to run this class. Because if you are using JUnit test class, in that class, there should be at least one method with the test annotation. That class should have at least one method with the test annotation. Then only that will be considered as a test method, test class. Okay. If I remove this annotation from this method, normal Java method available. When I right click and run as, I'm not getting that option. At least one test method is required if you want to execute that as a test class. Okay. So I have one method. For that method, I'm writing @test annotation. Right click, run as JUnit test. I'm running this as a JUnit test. When you run this as a JUnit test, here you can see JUnit console open. In our console, nothing I'm getting because I don't have any SOP statement to print here. JUnit console open. When you open the JUnit console, here you can see green color bar is available. That means everything is a success. So if you go to this class, if you expand this class, test add, this method is executed successfully. Testing is successful. Boss, you called one method. Show is the REST API. Yeah. I will show that, ma'am. This is a first example. The REST API example is also available. You need to have some patience, Mr. RK Reddy. Have some patience. I will show you that. I will develop the unit testing for REST API also. This is the first example. Okay. So please hold on for some time. Now, here I'm running this application. In this application, I'm having a method. That method is having @test annotation. When I run this, run as a JUnit test. Now, here, is it printing anything on our console? Nothing is printing on our console. So here, a separate console is open. That is called JUnit console. Separate console is open. That is called JUnit console. So in this console, everything is green color. That means unit testing is successful. And if you expand this, there is one test method available that is executed as expected. Perfect. Now, similarly, in this class, there is another method called multiply method available. I want to test that method also. Then similarly, we need to write one more test case. Public void test multiplication method. Okay. Now here also, I need to create the object for the class to call that method. C dot multiply. I'm passing 2, 2 as an input. Now it is going to give some actual result. What is expected result? 2 multiplied by 2, 4. How to compare actual result with the expected result, guys? How to compare actual result with the expected result? How to compare actual result with the expected result? By using asset equals. Asset equals expected comma actual. So is it normal method or is it JUnit method now? This method is a normal method or it is a JUnit method now? It is a normal method. How to make it as a JUnit method? How to make it as a JUnit method? @test annotation. Okay, let me go for @test annotation. So there are 2 test methods available. Let me run them. Run as JUnit test. Go to JUnit console. Everything is green color. Now see, test add method available. Test multiply method is available. Test add method is available and test multiply method is available. Both are executed successfully. Both are executed successfully. Okay. For example, if I am expecting 5, 2 multiplied by 2, expecting 5, but actual will be something, expected will be something. If both are not equal, what will happen? Run this, run as JUnit test. Now you see green color bar or red color bar. Green color bar is coming or red color bar is coming now? Red color. That means what? Test is successful or test is failure? When the test is a success, green color bar will come. When the test is failure, this red color bar will come. You see, in this calculator test class, there are 2 test methods available because for the 2 methods, we have given @test annotation. Okay. For 2 methods, we have given @test annotation. One method got success, another method got failure. For success method, no trace available. For the failure method, trace is available. Boss, assertion failed. Expected 5, but actual 4. You are expecting 5 as output from the method, but that method has given 4 as the output. Both are not matching. That means your test is failed. Add is successful, multiplication is failure. You can see green color tick mark and blue color cross mark is available. Add method is executed successfully and multiplication method executed, but there is a failure because expecting 5, actual is 4. When there is a failure in the test, this color bar will come. Okay. Are you guys getting my point? So now tell me, what is the purpose of @test annotation? What is the purpose of @test annotation? What is the purpose of @test annotation? It is used to represent one method as a JUnit test method. It is used to represent one method as a JUnit test method. Guys, here if you observe, we are creating object 2 times for the same class. Is it recommended or not recommended? It is not recommended. Okay. Can I write public void init, public void init, and I will declare here private calculator C is equal to null. C is equal to new calculator. I don't want to create the object 2 times. I don't want to create the object 2 times. Okay. So I had declared this class as a variable. This is called my calculator is a target class. I want to perform the testing for calculator. So to perform the testing for the calculator, I'm using a class called calculator test class. Okay, guys. Now I want to execute this method. I want to execute this method. Okay. Then after, once the testing is completed, I want to go for destroy. C is equal to null. Here, I'm creating the object. Here, I am nullifying the object. Here, I'm creating the object. Here, I am nullifying the object. Okay, let's execute. Run as JUnit test. Now, is this executed or it is failed? It is executed or it is failed? Test is executed or test is failed? Test add. These are executed or not executed? These are not executed. Okay. Now I want to execute this method. For that, I'm going to write one annotation. @before all. @after all. @before all and @after all. I'm writing the annotations. Run as JUnit test now. Comparison failure, class not found exception. JUnit Jupyter failed. @before all, @after all. The meaning is, before the first test case, this method should be executed. After the last test case, this method should be executed. That is the meaning of before all and after all. But I'm getting some exception here. Class not found exception. Let me check this. Run as JUnit test. It's a version issue. Yes, maybe some version issue. This annotation is not working. So which version of dependency I have added? JUnit 5 point, JUnit Jupyter, JUnit version 5.8. That is fine. Guys, see here, I will check this. So maybe the version issue, we are not able to execute these annotations. Basically, here we have given some annotations. Those are before all, after all. Before all, after all. Before all means this annotation will make sure that method will execute before all the test cases. That means before executing the first test case, this method should be executed so that the object will be created. Here, I'm giving one annotation that is called after all. When we go for after all, after the last test case is executed, then this method will be executed. That is the meaning of before all or after all. But we are getting some exception with these annotations. So let me check. So is there any version problem? Why these annotations are not executing? Why we are not getting the output for this? Similarly, we are having another annotation called before each. So when you go for before each, that means for each test case, this method will be executed. And we are having after each. That means for after, before starting any test case, this method should be executed. After completion of the test, then this method should be executed. Before all, after all, before each, after each, like these annotations are available. So we are getting some exception. Let me check why these annotations are not working. Okay. So similarly, we are having parameterized test annotation and value source annotation. What is the meaning of parameterized test annotation and value source annotation? So if you want to test the same method with multiple inputs, for example, let me take here, there is a method available. That method is used to verify the given string is palindrome or not. So the logic already we know. Palindrome means if the given string is reversed and if it is matching to the same string. For example, Liril, if you read from right side or left side, it is Liril only. And madam is available. MADAM, if you read from left side or if you read from right side, that will give the same meaning as madam. That is called as a palindrome string. So whatever the string we are giving as an input for this method, whether that string is a palindrome or not, we are going to test by using this method. Now I want to perform unit testing for this method. So to perform unit testing for this method, I'm going to write some logic. Okay. Palindrome test class is available. Now I want to perform unit testing for this palindrome check. So how to perform unit testing for this palindrome check? When I'm going to perform this unit testing, I want to supply multiple inputs. So that is called parameterized testing. I want to test the same method with multiple inputs. Parameterized testing I want to perform. Okay, let us do this. How can we perform that unit testing for that method? Is a palindrome is our method. Palindrome test is available. Public void is test is palindrome method. Test is palindrome method. Okay. So what is our target class? Palindrome check is our target class. Palindrome check. PC is equal to new palindrome check. Okay. PC dot is palindrome. I want to pass some input. Whatever the input I want to pass, I'm taking as a method parameter, str. This method is going to return some Boolean value. Is that value is a palindrome or not? It is going to provide the Boolean value. Asset actual. This is the actual value. I want to test this method. So here if you go for @test, how many times this method will be executed, guys? If you go with @test, how many times this method is going to execute? This method will be executed only one time when you go for @test annotation. I don't want to test this only one time. I want to go for parameterized test. I want to execute this method for multiple times. How many times? Based on the value source. So in the value source, I'm going to pass the strings as an input. Strings array. Okay, here I'm going to pass Liril as one input, and I'm going to pass Madam as one input. Okay, Liril I'm going to pass, Madam I'm going to pass, race car I'm going to pass. Okay, all these three are the palindromes. Liril, Madam, and race car. Actual value. If I get actual value as true, that means it is a palindrome. How to verify? Set to true. Set to true. Whatever the actual value I'm getting, if that is true, that is a palindrome. Otherwise, it is not a palindrome. Now, here, let me pass my name. Here, Liril is a palindrome, Madam is a palindrome, race car is a palindrome, but Ashok is not a palindrome. So here, I'm creating object for the target class, and I'm calling the target class method. Target class method is having a logic. So if it is a palindrome, then this method will return true. If the given input is a palindrome, that method will return true. If the given input is not palindrome, that will return false value. Here I'm passing 4 different values to test the behavior of the method. Whatever the method is returning, that is the actual value. Is that actual value true or no? If it is true, test case is pass. If it is not true, then test case is failed. Okay. Now run as JUnit test. Palindrome test I have executed as a JUnit. Now let us go for JUnit board. Palindrome test we have done. Yeah. Now go to JUnit board, palindrome test. Test is a palindrome method. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times this method is executed. 3 times it is a success. Green color tick mark available. For Ashok, it is failed. Expected true, but we got the false value. So Liril, that method has given true because it is a palindrome, successful. Madam, it has given true, palindrome, success. Race car, true, palindrome, success. Ashok, not a palindrome, given false, it is failed. So how many times this method is executed, guys? Only one time, or it executed for 4 times? Method executed only one time, or that method executed for 4 times? Method executed for 4 times. Why this method executed for 4 times now? Because I have given parameterized test with the value source. Parameterized test with the value source, that method is executed for 4 times. Method is executed for 4 times. This is called parameterized testing. @test, parameterized test, value source, before all, after all, before each, after each. @test, that is used to represent the method as a unit test method. Parameterized test, if you want to execute your method for multiple times. Value source, to supply input for the test case method. Before all, before executing any test case, that method should be executed. After all, after executing all the test cases, after all method should be executed. Before each test method, that before each method should be executed. After each test method, after each method should be executed. But we are getting some exception with this. I will check and let you. Okay, guys. So you got the basic idea how we are performing unit testing. This is very basic level that we have done. With this knowledge, tomorrow we are going to perform unit testing for REST API. So our main target is how to perform unit testing for the REST API and how to implement mocking while performing the unit testing and how to generate the code coverage report. That we are going to discuss in the tomorrow session. So tomorrow Sunday, actually last 2 days I have not taken the class. Tomorrow we are going to have the class. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I will take the class, and 9 to 11. So we'll complete unit testing for the REST API with mocking. Okay, guys. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I will take the class for this, and we will continue on unit testing for REST API with the mocking. How to implement unit testing for Spring Boot REST API with mocking. Okay. So tomorrow with the same Zoom link, you guys can join. Tomorrow with the same Zoom link, you guys can join for unit testing with the JUnit and mocking. Okay. Thank you guys. We'll continue in the tomorrow session. So please do some practice. Basic examples only we have done. Basic example only we have done. How to perform unit testing for calculator method and palindrome method. Tomorrow we will see unit testing on the REST API. Okay, guys? Very good. Yeah. Thank you. We'll continue tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow workshops are there. Huh? Then what to do? Can we have the class evening tomorrow at same time 5 p.m.? Tomorrow morning workshops are there. Tomorrow evening or Monday? Monday. Okay then. Okay, so tomorrow you guys can attend the workshops in the morning. Then I will take the class on Monday. So, okay, guys. Fine. Good. Thank you, guys. So, thank you. Happy Sunday. Please attend the workshops tomorrow. Tomorrow, Spring Boot with the Docker workshop is available. You can attend that workshop. We'll meet again on Monday. Thank you. Thank you, guys.